And welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Delvecchio, specializing in home care, elder care planning, and the senior living industry. Thanks for tuning in. Boy, oh boy, we really struck a chord with the frauds and scams and prevention techniques. Texts were still coming in. I apologize, could not get to all the texts, but I appreciate you sharing the stories, and hopefully we'll get the word out to protect each other. All right. Getting a cancer diagnosis can be traumatic, and if the diagnosis is multiple myeloma, it can be devastating. This was the case for Ron Drennan 10 years ago, and he was told the average life expectancy is 2 to 3 years. Well, it's 10 years later, and Ron is still going strong at 77. I have Ron Drennan on the line with me. Ron, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, Ron,
enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, pleasure talking to you. And
I should correct you, though. It was 13 years ago.
Oh, it was. Okay, 13, even more so. It makes this story. You're such an inspiring individual, Ron. I had the opportunity to talk with you earlier on a couple of weeks ago and understand what you have gone through, and it has been a lot. I'd love to hear your story, and although we're going to be talking about multiple myeloma, your health challenges started in 2008 with another type of cancer diagnosis, didn't it?
That's right. I was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and I received a successful operation to remove the tumor and was undergoing treatment to prevent its return when in 2012 I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. I learned one thing from that first cancer, though, and I'd pass it on to your listeners, is if you ever get a drop of blood in your urine, don't ignore it.
Yeah, wise advice. And like you said, bladder cancer diagnosis, that alone is alarming. And then in 2012, you were diagnosed with multiple myeloma. So can you tell us what the healthcare professionals told you at that time?
Well, back then, things have changed with multiple myeloma as well. It was almost an orphan disease back then. But it wasn't very good news. It was stage 4. My high pain threshold might have allowed it to go unchecked for a couple of years. But it really affects your bones. And I finally broke an ankle that didn't really heal, and my GP suspected something more than just a broken ankle, had me do a test. A blood test, and then I was diagnosed in March of 2011. At the time, as you said, the survival rate was not very good. It's an incurable cancer, still is incurable, but I've learned to live with it.
Yeah, obviously you have, and I'd love to hear, Ron, about at the time, like you say, technology has advanced quite a bit, but now we're going back to 2012 with this diagnosis. What was the treatment plan at the time, and how, obviously it was successful, but what did you have to go through?
Well, they had a standard protocol chemotherapy, which, by the way, is still used today for first-line treatment, and it's a cocktail of 3 drugs, something called bortezomib, cyclophosphamide, very complicated names, and then a steroid to keep you alive and awake and hungry and that kind of thing. It was a 4-month program, and at the end, it didn't do the job. It didn't decrease this protein that is a marker for the cancer, and my oncologist told me that I'd best get my affairs in order, but there was an opportunity to apply to become a candidate of a clinical trial. And I was successful in being accepted, and I ended up on a 50-50 basis getting the experimental drug. 50% of the patients didn't. I was very lucky to get it, and it worked. It reduced the M protein low enough that I became a candidate for a stem cell transplant, which I had in March of 2012.
I can't.
And that whole process, particularly this new drug, I really believe saved my life.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Delvecchio here, and I'm talking with Ron Drennan. He was diagnosed with stage 4 multiple myeloma more than a decade ago, and at the time, life expectancy was very low, 2 to 3 years we're talking. And as you heard from Ron, I can't imagine having an oncologist say, "Hey, get your papers in order," and I guess you look back and you've mentioned you caught a break with this clinical trial, and so just if you can explain a little bit, how did you become a candidate for that clinical trial? Were you asking, are there alternatives, or did they just simply come out and say, "Hey, you know what, we want to get you on this trial"? Bring me through that.
Yes, a lot of patients aren't aware that clinical trials exist for almost all cancers. And you can literally punch in clinical trials, Canada, Quebec, or U.S. for your cancer, and they'll tell you where they are and how to apply for them. So some oncologists are aware and are proactive. Others are not even aware, particularly in smaller hospital centers. So I had been doing some research, and I encourage cancer patients to do a lot of research because there's a tremendous amount of management that you can be proactive on. And I found this clinical trial that happened to take place at the Jewish General Hospital, which was my hospital, and applied for it and was accepted. And I was, as I said, the best news of all was the randomization of the 50-50 and being told that I was going to get the new drug.
Just amazing. And God bless, here you are in remissions more than a decade later. Ron, how are you feeling now? And I'd love to hear also the emotional, psychological side, because it's, as you've clearly explained, you've beat the odds. But how are you doing? How are you feeling? And how are you emotionally?
Well, emotionally, I think I'm pretty stable. My wife may say differently, but I'm enjoying life tremendously. When I was diagnosed and when I was going through treatment, I had two daughters, and I said I'll never walk either of them down the aisle, and I'll never see a grandchild. And here I am with two daughters, happily married, and 5 grandchildren, 10, 9, 8, 7, and 5. So thrilling just to have that part of your life that you can be part of. But I'm quite active. Some people would say I'm extremely active. I do all kinds of things. I'm a passionate skier. My wife and I spent 6 weeks for 6 years before COVID skiing in Colorado. I kayak in the morning. I bicycle. Obviously, I did the bike run to conquer cancer for the Jewish General Hospital for 3 years. And I just love working around the property and chopping wood and et cetera, et cetera. I have chronic back pain because multiple myeloma does attack your bones. As a matter of fact, I had to have a titanium rod implanted in my femur because at the beginning I had let it go too long before it had done its damage. So I do have this back pain, but outside of that, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fabulous.
Love hearing that. Listening to Life Unrehearsed with Ron Drennan, who was diagnosed with stage 4 multiple myeloma over a decade ago. Ron, love to hear your enthusiasm. You are a big believer in giving back. We're going to talk a little bit more about this weekend or low weekend bike ride. However, you joined in our organization called Wellspring. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, I joined it through Myeloma Canada, which is the organization of myeloma patients in Canada. And it's based in Toronto. It doesn't have an operation here in Quebec. And I took a course to become a patient peer support person. It's quite a mouthful, but I've been given names of newly diagnosed patients, and since I'm the only one who's bilingual on the program, I get most of the francophones who are getting this diagnosis here in Quebec, various hospitals. And I must say it's shocking to see their state of mind in dealing with this reality that hits them in the head, because it's something that's hard to diagnose, and when it is diagnosed, hardly anybody ever knows about it before they get the diagnosis, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, good on you for giving back and to share these experiences with recently diagnosed cancer. I don't even want to say patients, and I'm sure your experience means the world to them. Ron, we're going to continue our conversation. We have to head out to the CJD Traffic Center, but when we come back, Ron, we're going to talk about the recent huge bike ride that you did called Le Weekend to support the Jewish General Hospital Foundation, and we're going to get your words of advice for our listeners that might be going through some challenging times. And welcome back. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Delvecchio, and I'm talking with Ron Drennan, who was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, stage 4, I might add, over a decade ago. At the time, life expectancy was 2 to 3 years. He was even told by his oncologist to prepare his papers. Well, he's proving everybody wrong more than 10 years later. Ron, thanks for being on the show, sharing your story. Very inspiring. We heard what you had to go through, and let's bring it fast forward to just a month ago, where you completed an 80-kilometer bike ride for Le Weekend fundraiser for the Jewish General Hospital Foundation. How was that experience?
It was magical. Everybody there is, of course, wears their heart on their sleeve, and they're doing it for the right reasons. So it's just that the vibe outside was fantastic. It's hard work, but I just found being part of the experience. It was the third year I had done it, so being part of the experience was important to me, and an opportunity to fundraise for an institution that I believe in very much. I must say that before COVID, I did it in 2019, and it was a lot more challenging. It was Montreal to Quebec City in 2 days, so 80 kilometers is nothing compared to the one that we did before COVID.
Well, I did that ride to conquer cancer going back a few years as well to Quebec
City.
There
you go.
It's a grind, but good on you. You're being a humble man. I understand you were also one of the, speakers on stage in front of literally thousands of participants. So congratulations for you for giving some words of inspiration. I heard that, and it was just an excellent speech. You sure, you should be a motivator and a little side gig there, Ron.
Well, maybe I could work for CJD.
Shout out to your daughter, who I understand is also biking with you, or biked with you. Is that correct?
Yes. Both my son-in-law and my daughter are outstanding bikers. So she joined me on the ride, and she joined me in the fundraising. But my wife, who did not join me on the ride, she was my trainer, my motivator, the person who got me out to practicing, because as you know, you don't just jump on a bike and do 80 kilometers. So it was a lot of fun being with my daughter, who drafted me most of the way. I'm not the fastest biker, I can tell you that much.
Well, a true family initiative, and good on you for mentioning your wife, because I know, as you've mentioned to me off air, she has been a real inspiration to you, and doing a lot behind the scenes there. So I this is a fundraiser for the Jewish General Hospital Foundation, and I see that you are way up there on the individual money raisers. How much money have you raised?
Well, I personally raised over $12,000, and I just have a lot of very generous, very thoughtful friends who also give back. My daughter and I, our team, we raised $15,000, and the Jewish raised almost $1.7 million for that event. So it's a big deal for them, and it's a big deal for the whole community.
Big deal indeed, and such an important fundraiser for the Jewish General Hospital Foundation. They do it right, and good for you for participating and continuing to raise funds. This just doesn't stop because the Le Weekend ride finished, and we'll be talking a little bit about how you can donate even more. Talking with Ron Drennan here on Life Unrehearsed. Ron was diagnosed with stage 4 multiple myeloma over 10 years ago, and he's proving everybody wrong. Just love this. And Ron, we said jokingly and somewhat jokingly that you really are an inspiring gentleman, and I know that you have inspired a lot of people, and you continue your work with Wellspring and others, getting the good word out. So I'd like to pick your brain a little bit, and for those that are going through perhaps a cancer diagnosis or going through some difficult times, what recommendations do you have for people that might be struggling with this?
Well, mental attitude is key. I think you have to go into it saying, I'm going to learn to live with this. It's going to be a long road. It's going to be a voyage, and I'm going to get better. So mental attitude is key. Also, physical condition going into a cancer diagnosis. If you're in good shape, it helps. It helps going through that journey again. And so I encourage people to stay active and in good shape. But I believe sincerely that it's not a battle, because it's not an invader like COVID. It's part of you. It came out of you. So I believe it's more of a living with cancer and a road or a voyage to wellness, as opposed to the battles that you read about in the obituaries, losing a battle or having a long battle and so on. So a lot of it's mental attitude. It's critical to have a supportive, loving family, and most importantly, a caregiver who is as good as my wife was. It's unbelievable.
Just love that. And as I hear you, I've had a couple of other cancer patients run on Life Unrehearsed, and we talked about the psychology of it all. 10 plus years later, still doing well. It does weigh on you, though I guess in the back of your mind, it's just inevitable. And how do you deal with that when you're talking about mental attitude and fortitude? You obviously have that strong mental attitude, and does that help you with so it doesn't weigh so heavy on your mind?
Yeah, I have to see my oncologist every 3 months, and I've said to him, why every 3 months when I'm doing so well? And his answer has been, I don't want it to be 6 months before I treat you when it comes back. So that's kind of a scary prognosis. But on the other hand, I go in there every 3 months feeling that I'm in good shape, and the numbers are going to prove me right, and so far, so good.
Well, you do live a very healthy life. I want to expand a little bit on that, Ron. And you're staying active and keeping busy. How important is lifestyle in contributing to your overall health and well-being?
I think it's critical. We had just retired and moved to the Laurentians, and I live on a lake and fresh air and exercise every day and so on. And as we went through COVID, I just said, what a wonderful place to be during COVID, as opposed to being stuck in a condo in downtown Montreal where you couldn't get out and get the fresh air. So I've been very, very fortunate to have a lifestyle that is a healthy lifestyle and one that promotes healing.
Talking with Ron Drennan here on Life Unrehearsed. Ron, I really do want to thank you for coming on the show here on a Sunday and telling your story. Very inspirational. And as mentioned, you're still fundraising, and I'd like to let our listeners know how can they donate to your fundraising efforts.
Well, I checked it out, and I Googled JGH for Jewish General Hospital, just the 3 letters, and my name, Ron Drennan, and my page pops up. So you can go straight to my fundraising page, or if you prefer, you can go to their website, which is Le Weekend with a hyphen between Le and weekend.ca, and to look for my name there. So there are 2 ways of doing it.
Well, that's great. And, good for you. Like you mentioned, about $1.7 million has been raised so far. And you personally have done over 12, thrown a few $1,000s extra with you and your daughter. And really hats off to you. And just to repeat, that Jewish General Hospital Foundation, so JGH, type in JGH Ron Drennan, or just Le Weekend, and there's a dash between week and Ron.
No. There's a dash between Le and weekend.
Okay, there we go. Le dash weekend. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
Ron,
and they give tax receipts.
Well, yes, that's always helpful and really required. Ron, thank you very much.
Thank you. You're doing great work with this initiative, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your time and wish you continued success and health.
Thank you very much. You too.
All right. That's Ron Drennan, diagnosed with multiple myeloma, stage 4 multiple myeloma, over a decade ago. And he's now 77 years old, and you heard from him. Such a great attitude and keeping strong. So God bless. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Life Unrehearsed, and to all our Jewish listeners observing Yom Kippur, which is actually about to start very, very soon. And I want to wish you an easy fast. And as a reminder, for all your inquiries inquiries or assistance with life transitions, elder care planning, and the senior living industry, it would be my pleasure to help. You can find out more if you look up Lianas Senior Transition Support. That's Lianas, Lianas, Senior Transition Support. Many thanks to our technical producer, Dario. Great job today. You can listen to Life Unrehearsed here on CJD 800 every Sunday at 4 p.m.